During the year of 1965, a local park in California was the hot spot for bike rides, morning walks, runs, or even a place of relaxation. On April 7th, a young girl was found sitting against a tree with blood dripping from her neck. Upon further investigation, she was found with a suicide note and pen in one hand and a pocket knife in the other. Was it suicide or cold-blooded murder? With the evidence found at the crime scene, investigators were able to determine the perpetrator and what really happened on the morning day at Cherrywood Elementary School. Around 10:30 a.m., an individual discovered a corpse leaning against a tree with what appeared to be a slash across the neck and a pocket knife in hand. 16-year-old Barb Holland. Barb Holland was described by her friends and loved ones as a charismatic individual. A high school junior, she was outgoing, strived to succeed, and was overall a positive person.
911, what's the nature of your emergency?
Someone just killed herself. We're at Cherrywood Elementary School and she's sitting against a tree. Please send help, please.
I was walking with my friend when I discovered a body leaning against a tree. Because there are so many homeless people living at the park, we assumed that it was one of them. But when we got closer, we noticed a red stain on her sweater. We slowly approached her and discovered that it was blood, and she had been slit across the throat. I discovered that she had no pulse as my friend dialed 911.
Upon further investigation, the witness stated she had a pocket knife in a weak grasp and a pen and paper lightly held in her other hand. CSI investigators collected the pieces of evidence and also took notes of her wounds. After extensive photographs were taken, the blood on the murder weapon was collected and packaged in a biohazard container in order to be analyzed. The pen and note were packaged in separate bags in order to prevent cross-contamination, while the knife was packaged separately in a cardboard box of its appropriate size. When Holland's autopsy came back to the scene site investigators, they found out that she had the obvious wound on her throat and suffered a slight concussion. The autopsy ruled her death by means of excessive blood loss. The knife found in Holland's hand was confirmed to be the murder weapon after the laceration seemed to match the blade of the knife. DNA analysis also confirmed the blood present on the murder weapon belonged to Holland and that she was O positive. To look for more evidence towards the perpetrator, the clothing she was wearing were sent to forensic analysis. They discovered brunette strands of hair sporadically surrounding her sweater. After a lengthy examination, experts concluded that the hair was not from a human. Despite heavy similarities, they discovered it was dog hair.
Determined that dog hair was found on the victim's sweater instead of human hair due to the differences in the cuticle, which was transparent and spinous. Although human hair is also transparent, the strand had an intricate pattern.
Under the impression that Holland was alone prior to the incident, it may be difficult to locate suspects. However, witness testimonies were able to provide two suspects who may have been responsible. 25-year-old Kristen Heather Gilbert and 23-year-old Juniper Stilinski. Kristen Heather Gilbert is quiet and often isolated from others. She has no previous criminal records but is known as a drunkard who often lashes out when irritated. Juniper Stilinski is known for wanting to spread peace to everybody. She has a bohemian personality but does have previous arrest records for minor offenses. After the conclusion that this suicide is actually a murder, it came down to the analysis of the handwritten note found in Holland's hand to exonerate one or both suspects. Forensic analysts had the suicide note sent to a forensic lab in order to determine if Holland had actually written it. To be able to have a comparison, Stilinski and Gilbert were both asked to provide handwriting samples for a viable exemplar.
The note found in the crime scene said "I'm sorry" and had no apostrophe in "I'm." The writing appeared to be shaky, most likely due to the circumstances of the situation. And the "I" in "I'm" was crossed, however the bottom line was not connected. The "Y" in "sorry" was curled, rather than the traditional structure it has. In comparison to the sample provided by Stilinski, the writing was neater, had the bottom line connected to the "I" in "I'm", and has a slight slant to the right. Comparing the sample provided by Gilbert, the messiness of the writing had a slight similarity with the note, and the "I" in "I'm sorry" had the bottom line connected in a similar way.
Due to the notable differences in the handwriting between Stilinski and Gilbert and the suicide note, Stilinski was ruled out as a legitimate suspect. However, due to insufficient evidence available to connect Gilbert to the crime, she was released on bail for $500. Analysts knew that Holland did not commit suicide, eventually looking towards the note that was in Holland's hand in order to investigate for fingerprints. The receipt the note was written on was set above a burner to display any fingerprints they may have been left, and photos were taken to aid with the investigation.
After investigating the photos of the fingerprints found on the note and the prints of the victim, it either proves or disproves theories of her suicide. Due to an insufficient amount of area that the fingerprint provided, it was nearly impossible to compare the two sets of prints, thus unable to find a match and convict a suspect.
It was a dead end. However, forensic analysts knew there were more pieces of evidence that would lead them to make connections. Gilbert was considered to be the only suspect for this case, but there wasn't enough evidence available to convict of the crime. However, there was enough suspicion, and it led to police to search her home with the search warrant. As police searched her home, they discovered a shirt laying on her shelf next to her bed. After further inspection of the shirt, there were multiple red stains spread sporadically in the front. It was then taken into the lab in order to be further analyzed. In order to determine if there is blood present in the shirt, a Kastle-Meyer test was performed. First, 3 drops of ethanol was put onto a cotton swab and was rubbed onto the given sample to have the stain transferred on the swab. Next, 3 drops of the Kastle-Meyer solution was dropped onto the swab and was allowed a little over 30 seconds to test for a false positive. The swab didn't produce a false positive, so 3 drops of hydrogen peroxide was dropped, allowed a 30-second wait, and resulted in a positive result. Although without the presence of DNA, blood analysts were unable to make a match. However, this discovery allowed further investigation on Gilbert. Forensic scientists were becoming desperate to solve this murder case, determined to find out who murdered Holland. Suddenly, a miracle occurred. Detectives on the case decided to inspect the murder weapon once more in case something was overlooked. Something was. Skeptics didn't believe that a print couldn't be found on the weapon and decided to run another test on it. After having it sent to the lab to have it re-overlooked, there was an amazing discovery.
After having the murder weapon analyzed once again, a full print was discovered on the base. It was lifted off the weapon by using magnetic powder around the general area, and then tape was then used to lift the print and put it on a piece of paper. The print found the murder weapon was discovered to be a loop pattern. After looking further into it, the print has a delta in the bottom left-hand corner. There is an island and a fork below it slightly to the left. In the upper right-hand corner, there is a short ridge, and below it is an eye. Lastly, in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a ridge ending.
After these characteristics were looked at, it was compared to the right thumb print provided from Gilbert. It was an exact match. The print was sent into the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or the IAFIS, and further confirmed the match between the two prints. The fingerprint on the murder weapon was what finally brought Holland's murderer to justice. Kristen Heather Gilbert was arrested and charged for first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. In a recorded confession with Gilbert, she simply stated she acted out of pure panic. She felt the paranoia kick in when she realized Holland caught her in the act of abusing her dog. It led to Gilbert knocking Holland out with a rock. Thinking she had killed Holland and not feeling a pulse, she retrieved her pocket knife and constructed the crime scene to look like a suicide. She then ran off, and the only thought she had was to not get caught. She felt the paranoia kick in when she realized Holland caught her in the act of abusing her dog.